Hello everyone, this is Hanrik from Team FD. Today I'm going to bring you the undying deck, Gaogamon, for the BT17 all the way up to 18 including EX07 meta. The deck largely stays the same and there are a few tech slots where you can adjust it for your own meta. Brief introduction about this deck. It's basically a jack of all trades deck. It does control, it does OTK, it does stall, it does everything sort of well, but not the best. But it's exactly this type of flexibility that makes this deck ever so long lasting. So first of all, we have our staple level 3s for Gaogamon, EX4. It's on play as draw 1 and the inherited effects gain 1 memory. Basically, it's the starter for all our combos, must 4. Then the rest of the level 3 lineup is basically up to your personal preference or your local meta. There's no big debate on what's the best and what's the worst. So first you have the EX7 Tadpole, which is prevent reduction of memory cost for on plays. So it's useful if you think there's going to be a lot of Dex Mons or 7 Deadly Sins. Gaomamon can remove inheriteds, so might be useful against decks like Gaogamon, so you can get rid of their SOC Tamer and they'll lose all their effects. And more somewhat niche is the cannot be blocked effect. It's very good for bypassing decks like Gaogamon again and also Magnamon X. Then we have Bodoki Betamon. Jamming. The on-play effects used to be completely irrelevant, but now since we play Hankunmon level 5 and there's Scramble, its occasional benefit of if it pops up from the security, if Scramble pops up from the security, you can stop an attack, or you can use Hankunmon paired with this to lock up a Digimon so you don't have to clear it per se, which also helps solve one of blue deck's biggest issue of being unable to kill things, especially if they're level 6 or above. And more importantly, it's jamming. Then we have Modoki Beta, prevent memory gain apart from tamers. So again, very meta dependent, straightforward. Then we have the Clam, prevent reduction in evo cost. Again, self-explanatory, depends on your meta. But in general, if it's a very wide meta where there's no specific deck which is particularly dominant, this is the least important, and these two are the most common because memory gain, basically every deck will have some sort of memory gain, maybe from delays or their inherited effects. And obviously 2-cost training delay, most popular card in basically any deck, so definitely will have some use cases. And now the last candidate, Lunamon. Rather weird choice for some, but because remember Gaogamon is a deck that doesn't really care about names, they only care about if it's blue or not. So we basically tech in every single useful blue card possible. So the effect at the start of main, you can bounce a card, bounce a Digimon, and you can gain 2 memory. You can bounce itself as well. So one of the niche combos is you use Scramble, pull Lunamon out, Lunamon, bounce yourself, and you get 2 mem at the start of the turn. Another use is when you evolve into this Nightclaw Gaogamon. Assuming your opponent is going to be 8 hand cards or above, this is going to be 1-cost evo. And then when you move him back using Luna's inherit effect, you gain another 2 memory. Then you just evolve into any old level 4, you net gain 1 memory. And you cycle through your deck an extra time, and also you can help your opponent draw more if they're some deck like Fenrir Luga, which can discard their hand to make it below 8, making your life very difficult. Then we have our level 4 staples. Again, the BT17 new Nightclaw Gaogamon, basically the star of this deck, helps your opponent draw, basically 1-cost evo, draws you more, and it's jamming, and it pairs well with Lunamon as well. Then the remaining level 4 slots are basically flex, and you can play whatever you want. These are the potential candidates. The old BT13 Gaogamon can help you summon a tamer, which is useful but not that useful, because most of the time your primary game plan is to still set up for an OTK from behind in the breeding zone. So most of the time, level 4s, you just evolve them when you have nothing to do, and unlikely you're ever going to use this effect, but somewhat occasionally useful. And the plus 1000 DP is very important for some matchups. And the Digimon gives jamming, so helps you secure OTK. Tiny side benefit is when you evolve, you can put a level 3 from a hand in the inherited. So when you evolve into Huan Kun, you have an extra target for you to choose if your initial level 3 target was not the right one. Then you have the EX4 Gaoga, bounce to level 3, and gain 1 mem inherited. Very useful as usual, but the meta has evolved way beyond people playing level 3 searchers. Basically, you can assume your opponent's board is always empty, so sort of useless effect, but it's very good in matchups where people play these memory blockers. This is one of the primary methods of getting rid of them. Lastly, Lalamon. Hybrids obviously gives you an additional point of attack, but the reality is in this deck, in order to kill your opponent, you're always using level 7 MirageGaogamon burst mode. And if you're using burst mode, all your tamers would have been suspended for the burst mode's unsuspend effect. So where's your tamer for Lalamon? Basically, the only situation where you would ever use Lalamon is if your burst mode somehow failed to do the OTK and it got killed by a security bomb, then this is your backup, which seldom comes up. So personal preference, basically. Then our level 5s, the new primary level 5, the star of the deck, Huan Kunmon. Huan Kunmon explains our eggs. When he evolves, or on play, but they're never playing this, you can pull a level 3 from one of your Digivolutions and play them. So primary target would be Gaomon, so both players draw 1, helps you cycle through your deck, helps your opponents increase their hand size, and with this egg effect, when Digimon is played from the inherited, you gain 1 memory. So effectively it's a 2-cost evo, the cheapest level 5 with a good effect. Inherited effect is when you attack, you can put a Digimon under the Digivolution and then unsuspend. So what you could do is play this, get the 1 mem, get the draw, shove it back in. So when you increase the opponent's hand size again, you get another extra mem. Very strong card, especially in BT17 onwards, where Ancient Garurumon is a very popular deck. Ancient Garurumon always bounces the lowest level, so in order to protect our own level 6s or 5s, just evo Huan Kun, pull a level 3, leave it there, and it'll act as our decoy to tank the Ancient Garuru pops, bounces. Then we have 2 Macaos. Doesn't really matter which version you play. Again, meta dependent. This one is prevent any redirects, so it's good for blocker heavy decks such as Tyrant Insect decks, and also Magnamon before they get the Gabubon. Once they get the Gabubon, it becomes a really weird situation where you have to attack with this at level 5 to get the canopy redirected, but then you open up yourself to the possibility of eating an ace to the face and losing the entire chain. So good and not good. And this BT11 version is the generically more useful version. Plus 2k for every 4 hand cards in your opponent's hand, and it gains blocker until the end of the opponent's turn. So you can pump up your Gaoga to a relatively large size, usually at least plus 4k, sometimes plus 6k. which could have its uses. So it doesn't really matter which one you play. You can play 2 of this or 1/1 like this. Then we have the best level 5 and the worst level 5 at the same time, Zudamon Ace. Zudamon Ace basically does nothing if you're ahead. And if you're trying to go for the OTK, because it's just a liability, 3-cost Evo, no particularly good effect, and it's an overflow target. But then when you're in mid-game where there's no significant lead and when you're behind, 4-cost Zudamon evolve into level 6, best play ever. And it's an ace, so and all of the level 4s become somewhat of a threat. So 2 Zudamons. Our level 6s, obviously the star of the deck, BT11033 Gaogamon, MirageGaogamon. This is how the deck functions basically, entirely dependent on Gaoga. Gaoga gives you control because it stops your opponents from drawing. So if they didn't have the answer initially, they would have to spend extra memory to dig for the answer. And because 4 level 6s is technically a bit on the low side, we play the 5th level 6. Hexa Blue, EX7. If EX7 is not released yet in your region, then just stick with 4 level 6s. Hexa Blue gives you additional utility. It has Ice Raid, which is occasionally useful. And more importantly, its ability of preventing your opponent's Digimon from suspending if there's less inherits than Hexa Blue stops a lot of random aggro decks. And there's an additional benefit against decks such as Fenrir, which can reduce their hand size to below 8, making it extremely difficult for Gaga to OTK. Paired with any of the level 5s, you basically have a 2-check on suspend, so 4 checks in total. Makes it extremely easy to kill them, even without 8 hand cards. Then obviously our level 7s, 3 Mirage. Mirage is only at 3 because technically you only need 1, because once you see 1 you're supposed to end the game, and even if you don't, likelihood you're still winning. And because we have 3 scrambles, you can always pick back up the Mirage, so there's not much reason to run 4. So then on to options. The whole package of delays, trainings. 2-cost training is obviously better because 2 is way better than 3. But since there's only 4 copies available, we play 2 memory boost. 1 copy of Ice Wall, because Ice Wall is a generically good card. Played at the right moment, it will buy you 1 turn, and 1 turn is sometimes what you need to win the game. Some people will ask, where's the security bombs? I generally despise security bombs because security bombs usually are 8 cost and played from hand, absolutely garbage. It takes up your entire turn and gives your opponent quite a significant amount of memory. You're basically gambling that your opponent can't recover from the loss of resources, especially because you're a blue deck, all your bombs just bounce to hand. And if you say 1 security bomb, you always mulligan it away from your hand, in your starting hand, and you don't draw it in your starting hand. There's roughly an 11% chance of it being in your security. And if a card is only good in the security, it's only there 11% of the time, you have better options to use. Lastly, we have our tamers. 3 4-cost Thomas, 1 3-cost Thomas. While 3-cost is easier to use per se, and it's a free and suspend and cheaper, a memory setter is very important because we still want to OTK and threaten the OTK, so we need to guarantee ourselves to have 3 memory, so hence the heavier side on 4-cost Thomas, which also explains why I don't recommend playing Lalamon, because if you play Lalamon, you would technically want a bit more tamers, thus making space more tight. And if you're going to drop the Lalamon, you can justify running 4 tamers.